Pretend you kiss me for 10 minutes. If you hesitate, 300 people will lose their jobs by Christmas." Julian Hale hissed, his voice slicing through the sterile calm of Metropolitan General's VIP wing like a jagged knife. His gray eyes darted toward the corridor where camera flashes erupted like a swarm of predatory fireflies. The urgency in his tone made the air itself feel brittle. Eliza Rhodes, 27, cardiac nurse, shy and almost invisible among the hospital elite, froze, her clipboard midway to her chest. Julian Hale, CEO of Novalex, pharmaceutical titan, stood before her, a man usually untouchable now laid bare by desperation. Her hands shook as his words sunk in. Around them, the VIP wing gleamed with unspoken hierarchy. Imported marble that never cracked, nurses speaking in reverent whispers, patients with Platinum Shield insurance cards. Power here wasn't measured in skill, but in pedigree, money, and influence. At 36, Julian had survived hostile takeovers, betrayals, corporate espionage. His closest allies had sold secrets, stolen millions, vanished. Trust was a currency he spent sparingly. "Why would I?" Eliza started, her voice faltering, the question hanging between them like a bridge unfinished. "Because I need to escape a marriage that would destroy my company and someone I do not love. And you," he said, voice taut, "are smart enough to understand I never repeat myself." Eliza instinctively touched the silver cross at her throat. Her grandmother's final gift before eviction forced them out. She had always been overlooked, passed over for the main nursing team, not for lack of skill, but for her refusal to compromise ethics for approval. She could see what others missed, the subtle signs of pain, fear, desperation. Only last week she had saved Mrs. Patterson from suicide by noticing a slight change in her breathing, the way her fingers fidgeted, the obsessive stare at the window latch. These small victories reminded her why she chose nursing, despite being invisible, underpaid, underappreciated. In Julian's eyes, she saw the same exhaustion she knew from quiet, invisible struggles, the masks too heavy, the burdens too lonely to share. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a flash of crimson hair caught her eye. Vanessa West, heiress of the Westcare empire, moved with precise, predatory grace. Emerald eyes scanning, every step measured, a force of inherited power and ruthless ambition. Julian followed her gaze, jaw tightening. "She's here." "Please," he whispered, voice cracking, revealing the trapped man beneath the corporate armor. Eliza glanced at her reflection. Tired eyes, worn mascara, patched-up shoes. She turned back to him, compelled by force she could not name, brushing her fingertips gently across his cheek, a gesture small but seismic in consequence. A camera flashed, capturing the moment. Innocent, fleeting, yet poised to ignite a battle that would unravel decades of corruption. That single act of compassion would turn a shy nurse into the voice exposing a pharmaceutical empire and save thousands in the process. 15 minutes later, Vanessa's scream shattered the calm, her Louboutin heels pounding like gunfire. "You pathetic little gold digger," she roared, cornering Eliza in the supply closet, fury fueled by a world about to collapse around her. "Do you really think I don't see what you're plotting?" But Vanessa West was far more dangerous than a mere tempest of rage. She was calculated fury, sculpted in designer threads and fortified by generations of inherited power. Within hours, her whisper campaign ignited like a virus, spreading through Metropolitan General with surgical precision. The new nurse sleeps with the CEO to get preferred shifts. The poison infiltrated every interaction, eroding relationships Eliza Rhodes had painstakingly built over months of meticulous, compassionate care. Senior nurses who once lauded her observation skills now questioned her integrity. Doctors who had relied on her detailed patient notes found reasons to sidestep her entirely. Soon, Eliza was exiled to the psychiatric ward night shift. the hospital's Siberia for inconvenient staff. Her salary was slashed by 30% and her access to critical patients revoked. The quiet, heartwarming victories that had fueled her passion for nursing, moments of real human connection, were being methodically stripped away. "Nobody believes me," she whispered to Mr. Everett, the 69-year-old volunteer who had become her sole ally. A former pharmaceutical data analyst with kind eyes and the insight of one who had watched corporate greed destroy good people, he pressed a trembling hand into hers, a USB drive nestled in his palm. "Child," Mr. Everett murmured, voice heavy with age and righteous anger, "you heal with brilliance. But if you learn their language, the language of power, of numbers and bottom lines, they might finally listen. Document everything, anomalies in treatment, prescription errors, and, most importantly, the subtle shifts in people's hearts when they lie." Meanwhile, Eliza's trained eyes caught something deeply wrong. Mr. Harrison, a VIP recovering from cardiac surgery, was being prescribed medication directly contraindicated by his allergies and history. When she raised her concerns with Dr. Pemberton, Vanessa's longtime ally, he dismissed her with barely hidden scorn. "One nurse," he sneered. "Focus on your assigned duties rather than questioning senior staff who practiced medicine before you graduated." But Eliza knew that quiet vigilance sometimes saves lives where loud protests fail. That evening, she discreetly corrected Mr. Harrison's medication, documenting every anomaly in her personal notes with the precision that had always been her greatest asset. The next morning, Mr. Harrison was alive and stable, a silent testament to her intervention, though no official recognition would ever come. When Julian Hale heard the rumor through hospital gossip, he found her in the near-empty cafeteria, lunch brought from home, sipping coffee alone. "Let me take you to dinner," he urged, voice thick with unusual urgency. "We need to talk about what's happening to you. Because of me." Eliza's reply was quiet steel, wrapped in exhaustion and dignity. "I don't need rescue dinners or guilt trips. I need you to stop pretending you don't see me being systematically destroyed for one act of human kindness." For the first time, Julian Hale, master negotiator, corporate tactician, man undefeated by hostile takeovers, was rendered speechless. Her words cut through his defenses like a scalpel through infected tissue, revealing the moral cowardice he had avoided confronting. But Vanessa's campaign had only begun. She hired private investigators to dig into Eliza's vulnerabilities, her mother's cancer bills, crushing student loans, 3 jobs through nursing school just to survive. To Vanessa, desperation was ammunition for character assassination. Then, at midnight, a doctored video appeared on social media like a planted bomb. Expertly edited footage transforming Eliza's compassionate care into something predatory, a weaponized narrative designed to destroy her reputation completely. The comment section erupted in a torrent of anonymous venom. Predator in scrubs, fake nurse who bought her credentials, gold digger ruining healthcare. Yet the true shock was yet to come. Someone powerful had been secretly tracking Vanessa West, and what he uncovered would upend everything. At dawn, the coordinated strike hit with military precision. Eliza Rhodes arrived to find her hospital locker emptied, her access card deactivated, and federal investigators waiting in the conference room like vultures over fresh carrion. The charges read like a prosecutor's fantasy: inappropriate sexual conduct with patients, falsification of medical records, accepting bribes from pharmaceutical reps seeking preferential treatment. "I'm profoundly sorry, Eliza," Dr. Patricia Morrison intoned, voice the sterile neutrality of a pre-written script. "Until this federal investigation concludes, you are suspended without pay, pending potential criminal charges." Walking through the hospital corridors felt like a public perp walk. Nurses who had worked alongside her for months suddenly noticed trivial details of her attire. Doctors who once sought her expertise now treated her like contagion. Only Mr. Everett met her eyes directly, his weathered face conveying a complex mix of sympathy, determination, and restrained fury. Vanessa West's campaign had reached its crescendo: doctored video footage, carefully planted financial evidence, coached staff testimony secured with promises of promotions and debt forgiveness. Every detail designed not just to ruin Eliza's career, but to destroy her ability to ever work in healthcare again. That night, emotionally shattered, Eliza collapsed in the empty duty room, head buried in her hands, tears falling onto patient charts she would never complete. The space that had once been her sanctuary of compassion now felt like a tomb for her dreams. The quiet victories that had sustained her through years of struggle, moments when her keen observation saved lives, seemed distant and unreal. No colleague came to comfort her. Not even Julian Hale, the man whose desperate plea had triggered this avalanche, offered acknowledgement or defense. It was then that Mr. Everett arrived, maneuvering his wheelchair through the darkened corridors with the resolve of someone who had witnessed too much institutional corruption to remain silent. "Child," he said softly, settling beside her, "before you surrender to despair, let me show you something that may change your perspective." With trembling fingers, he opened the USB files on her laptop, revealing months of meticulous documentation. "Do you see this? 17 patient cases you flagged. 11 people are alive today because you noticed what everyone else missed. They never read your reports because they weren't written in the corporate language administrators understand." The evidence was staggering, but Eliza felt too broken to grasp it. "What's the point?" she whispered, "when no one listens to people like us? When a shy girl's careful observations mean nothing without the right connections or pedigree?" "Then maybe," Mr. Everett replied, his decades of pharmaceutical insight lending weight to his words, "it's time someone with real power paid attention to what you discovered." 3 floors above, in the executive wing, something profound stirred. Julian Hale's long-dormant conscience could no longer ignore the echo of Eliza's words, or the mounting proof that Vanessa West's vindictive campaign extended far beyond personal revenge, into a systematic, deeply sinister web of corruption. His corporate instincts, honed through years of hostile takeovers and ruthless boardroom battles, began detecting patterns hinting at a far deeper conspiracy, intersecting medical research, patient safety, and pharmaceutical profits. That night, consumed by guilt and mounting suspicion, Julian Hale meticulously reviewed every medical case tied to the investigation. What he uncovered in those patient files made his blood run cold. The pattern was undeniable and damning. Eliza Rhodes had documented countless rare diseases and unusual symptoms, records that had been mysteriously erased from official files. Life-saving research had been systematically deleted or altered, shielding pharmaceutical patents and corporate profits. "My God," he whispered, staring at screen after screen in his office at 2 a.m. She documented everything, every cover-up, every deleted file, every life that could have been saved if research had continued. What he found could either save Eliza or make Vanessa West more dangerous than anyone dared imagine. The evidence against Eliza was overwhelming in its fabricated perfection, yet Vanessa's ultimate act of character assassination revealed the depth of her family's systemic corruption. Federal agents arrived at Eliza's modest apartment at dawn, armed with an arrest warrant based on fabricated evidence alleging kickbacks from pharmaceutical reps and deliberate falsification of patient records for financial gain. "This is impossible," Eliza exclaimed, staring at documents detailing crimes she had never committed. "I've never accepted money from pharmaceutical companies. I've never altered a single patient record except to provide proper care." "Ma'am, extensive bank records show irregular deposits to your account. Sworn staff testimony claims inappropriate financial relations with patients, and surveillance captures you accepting envelopes from individuals linked to pharmaceutical companies," the agent recited, voice professional but cold. The evidence was masterfully constructed. Vanessa West had orchestrated shell company deposits, professionally filmed harmless thank you gestures from grateful patients, and coached staff to give damaging testimony in exchange for promotions, salary increases, and forgiveness of personal debts. While federal investigators meticulously built their case against an innocent nurse, Julian Hale launched his own investigation, employing the full resources that had grown Novalex into a global pharmaceutical powerhouse. What he discovered left him physically ill and morally devastated. The West family had been running charitable medical foundations as elaborate money laundering schemes for decades, testing unapproved experimental drugs on low-income patients while charging wealthy clients premium prices for standard care. Careers and reputations of researchers whose findings threatened the West's market dominance had been obliterated, not through violence but via methodical character assassination executed with surgical precision. "Sir," Julian's assistant interrupted, voice tense, "Miss West is here. She seems particularly confident." Vanessa swept into the office, exuding triumph like the most expensive perfume money could buy. "Following the news, darling. Your charity nurse is facing federal charges, medical fraud, patient exploitation, insurance scams, pharmaceutical kickbacks, the whole package." "Vanessa, this has gone too far," Julian said, voice tight. "Has it?" she replied, smiling, a perfect blend of beauty, triumph, and terrifying detachment. "She's just another delusional nurse from the wrong side of town, thinking she could worm her way into our world. The federal authorities have overwhelming evidence of her extensive criminal activities. Evidence that you meticulously planted and fabricated," Julian Hale said, voice calm but cutting. Vanessa West's composure never wavered, her confidence built on generations of inherited influence and institutional corruption. Compelling evidence, isn't it? Telling the story of a desperate woman exploiting her position for financial gain. Almost heartwarming, the narrative of a shy girl who overreached so spectacularly. But in her arrogance, Vanessa had made a critical miscalculation. She had underestimated both Julian's investigative skill and the obsessive precision of Eliza Rhodes's medical documentation. "There's something you should know," Julian said quietly, voice carrying the authority of someone reclaiming his moral backbone. "I've been reviewing patient files from the past 5 years. Every case of experimental treatments without proper consent, every research project defunded immediately after producing results threatening your patents." For the first time, Vanessa's practiced smile faltered, just a flicker of genuine concern. "The most fascinating discovery," Julian continued, "is that Eliza documented everything with scientific precision. Regulatory violations, cover-ups, every patient who received substandard care because proper treatment would have cut into your family's profits." "You're bluffing, Julian." "You don't have anything concrete," Vanessa sneered, voice brittle. "Am I?" He opened his laptop slowly, revealing page after page of damning evidence. Mrs. Catherine Liu, 67, cardiac research subject, died 3 days after receiving experimental treatment that hadn't completed basic safety trials. The informed consent bears your signature, Vanessa, authorizing research never disclosed to the patient or her family. Vanessa paled. That was a clerical mistake, a regrettable error. 17 separate clerical errors, Julian countered, all resulting in patient deaths or permanent disabilities, all involving patients who lacked resources to challenge medical malpractice. As her carefully curated facade crumbled, Vanessa realized her campaign to ruin a single nurse had inadvertently exposed the largest medical fraud in pharmaceutical history. Yet she wasn't finished. Her final desperate move would either destroy them all or reveal the one piece of evidence that could shield her empire. The war room was Eliza Rhodes's tiny apartment, transformed into a command center where truth mattered more than comfort or status. Legal briefs stacked beside worn medical journals, patient files organized with military precision next to corporate financial records. She was preparing to face Goliath armed only with courage, documentation, and unwavering commitment to justice. Julian Hale had assembled his top attorneys, yet even they seemed uneasy in the sparse surroundings, their confidence faltering under Eliza's meticulous presentation of decades-long medical fraud. She spoke with measured authority, having witnessed too much suffering to indulge in theatrics. "This isn't just pattern recognition," she explained, gesturing to the timeline spread across the table like a battle map. "The West family doesn't simply destroy individual careers when profits are threatened. They systematically eliminate entire research pathways that could save lives but reduce their market share." The evidence was staggering. Dr. Sarah Chen's groundbreaking cardiac research defunded weeks after refusing to falsify clinical trials. Dr. Marcus Williams stripped of lab accreditation and university post just 3 days after submitting findings that jeopardized WestCare's diabetes medication profits. But Vanessa West's sophisticated media machine fought back with every resource at her disposal. By noon, news vans swarmed Eliza Rhodes' apartment like an occupying force. By evening, major networks aired segments depicting her as a vengeful, unstable former employee targeting a respected pharmaceutical dynasty with increasingly outrageous accusations. The breakthrough came when Vanessa, confident in her invincibility and frustrated by mounting media attention, appeared personally on a national news program to defend her family. This disturbed woman was terminated for cause after repeated inappropriate behavior, Vanessa declared, flawless in designer attire and professional poise, projecting absolute moral authority. "She lacks any medical credentials beyond basic nursing. She's attempting to destroy reputable healthcare organizations because she could not succeed legitimately." But Vanessa made one fatal error. She categorically denied that WestCare had conducted any experimental research without informed consent. The live denial reached millions. Within hours, Julian Hale's legal team filed FDA complaints with dozens of patient consent forms proving otherwise, documents bearing Vanessa's signature authorizing undisclosed, dangerous medical experiments on vulnerable populations. The federal investigation pivoted dramatically. Within 48 hours, Vanessa West was arrested at her family estate, facing charges including medical fraud, patient exploitation, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Dr. Pemberton lost his medical license permanently. 3 other physicians faced serious criminal charges. The WestCare empire began collapsing as whistleblowers emerged from every division, finally safe to expose decades of corruption. "Eliza," Julian said when he found her in the hospital cafeteria after her vindication, "I want to make you an offer to begin addressing the injustice you've endured." She looked up, weary eyes still clouded. "I'm listening, but I'm not sure I'm ready to trust again. I want to restore your position immediately, with a substantial promotion and salary increase. More importantly, I want to give you the chance to build the healthcare system you've always envisioned, one that prioritizes patients over profits." Eliza shook her head, pulling an envelope from her purse. "Actually, I'm submitting my resignation from traditional hospital employment." "But why now, after complete vindication?" "Because I don't want to be someone who depends on powerful people for protection. I want to stand on my own principles, a voice that matters because of competence, not connections." Julian smiled, genuine warmth in his eyes, the first authentic expression she had ever seen from him. "Then I have another proposal. Become my director of community training and development, build the free clinic system you've dreamed of, and if it's not too forward, would you consider marrying me as well?" As Vanessa's empire crumbled, this once shy nurse realized her quiet voice had become a powerful force for protecting vulnerable patients for generations. 8 months later, Eliza Rhodes stood on stage at the National Healthcare Ethics Summit, addressing an audience of medical professionals, government officials, and patient advocates. She wore the same borrowed blazer from nursing school graduation, yet now exuded the quiet authority of someone who had faced institutional corruption and prevailed. Behind her, a massive presentation showcased her community healthcare development program. Nurse-led clinics that reduced emergency room overcrowding by 40%, saved lives, and lowered healthcare costs across underserved communities. Patient advocacy programs were now giving authentic voices to populations long ignored by traditional medical systems. In the audience, Vanessa West's spectacular downfall had become a cautionary tale studied in business ethics courses at leading universities. Footage of her threatening Dr. Pemberton to alter life-threatening patient records had sealed her conviction. Abandoned by Julian Hale and her own family members who publicly distanced themselves, she now faced 30 years in federal prison with no possibility of early parole. 8 months ago, Eliza Rhodes began, her voice clear across the packed auditorium. I was just a shy nurse, someone who noticed medical patterns others overlooked. I documented irregularities not to become a whistleblower, but simply to heal patients effectively. She paused, eyes finding Julian in the front row. He wore a simple wedding band. They had married quietly 6 months prior in a heartwarming ceremony attended by Mr. Everett and dozens of patients whose lives Eliza had saved through careful observation and courageous advocacy. But sometimes, she continued, growing in confidence, the most important healing comes not from treating individual symptoms, but from diagnosing and correcting systemic issues, affecting thousands of vulnerable people. The patients I serve today in our community clinics aren't just receiving medical care, they're receiving justice, dignity, and hope. Applause erupted, but Eliza raised her hand for silence. Someone once told me I heal beautifully, but if I learned to speak the language of institutional power, administrators and executives might listen. Today, I speak a different language entirely. The language of authentic hope and systemic change. She clicked to her final slide, a photograph of the Everett Community Health Center, bustling with patients and staffed by nurses and doctors who understood health care as a fundamental human right, not a privilege for those with premium insurance. To every healthcare worker who has felt invisible, who has noticed irregularities and wondered if it mattered, it does. Your voice carries weight, your courage transforms systems, and when you stand up for what's right, you discover you were never truly alone. After the presentation, reporters swarmed for interviews, and policy institutes offered prestigious consulting positions. Eliza reflected on her journey, from that desperate moment in the VIP wing to this platform of influence and respect. Any regrets about the path that brought you here? A journalist asked. Eliza smiled with the gentle expression that had first earned Julian Hale's trust. The day he asked me to pretend to kiss him, I thought I was just a shadow, invisible and unimportant. But sometimes the most powerful light comes from places no one expects. The Everett Community Health Center now serves over 15,000 patients annually, pioneering nurse practitioner-led protocols and providing comprehensive care to communities abandoned by traditional health care. Mr. Everett, now 71, continues coordinating volunteers, teaching healthcare workers to translate compassionate observations into effective action. Today, Eliza Rhodes's story reminds us, heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear scrubs and carry stethoscopes, armed with determination to heal and courage to speak truth to power. One person's authentic courage can expose corruption and transform entire systems. If this heartwarming story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember. Their voice matters, their observations count, and their courage can change the world.